Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. I have a very popular guest. You've seen him many times on many TV channels across India and also the world. And he is a strategic affairs analyst. We're going to speak to him, obviously related to Dharma, some of the current happenings, and how we can build a solution around that. So, without delay, let us welcome Sri Abhijit Iyer Mitra.
Har Har Mahadev.
Har Har Mahadev. So Abhijit, there are so many things happening in India, and especially beginning with China, and the Mike Pompeo went out of the way to support India publicly, and also the Defense Secretary of the United States also went out to support India publicly. Now, but also there are a lot of fake reports out there where they're trying to create a scare of China against India. Like they're saying that China is much well placed, more than before. What do you think on that? What is your viewpoint from India?
So, look, the Chinese generally have better equipment, as in normal equipment, right? They've standardized all their guns, their tents are heat protected, as in they have electricity and things like that uh, in the tents, even the additional tents that they've brought up and things like that. Um, and they certainly have shorter supply lines at the moment, given that in India we tend to think of air power as escalatory. From a certain point of view, it depends on where Pompeo looks at this from. He might be expecting that India will only do be ground centric, in which case the Chinese are in a better position. But like we've discussed before, if we actually decide to do this as a air centric thing, uh, their current positions won't really give them that much of an advantage.
So, see, from the American point of view, they think that can defend itself very well militarily, and therefore they have no plans of intervention unless India asks for it specifically. Now, coming back to there are many things happening in India, and I think many politicians are involved in that, and but some of them we love, where the justice in the Sushant Singh Rajput case was missing, and a country cannot stand or grow much if the truth and justice to essential aspects of dharma are not taken care. So justice denied is justice not done, actually is actually breaking the law. So what do you have to say on that?
Look, I don't know the details of the Sushant Singh Rajput case because I don't follow Bollywood at all. My upbringing was almost entirely classical music, and both Indian and Occidental. So it's always been going to the Vienna Opera or to Milan or to the Bolshoi Ballet and things like that, or going to the Madras Kacheri season, which was kind of like, it was our version of going to a Michael Jackson concert in the 80s. It wasn't like, oh, did you get tickets for a Michael Jackson concert? No, it was like, did you get season tickets for the Mylapore Kacheri at Music Academy kind of thing, which was like our big thing. And of course, as a kid, I was a complete freak because, you're expected to like Michael Jackson, and I don't even know who the latest pop stars are. So I don't. Um, but just generally what I know of, there's this big film actor called Sushant Singh Rajput who kind of died, who was ignored. And I don't know if it's suicide or a murder or whatever. But this is nothing new. In India, the justice system always fails you. It's a third rate justice system starting from the investigative process right up to the judicial process. Right? There is the law is the law when it is consistent in its application. The law shorn of consistency is tyranny, and that is what you have in India. There is no consistency of the law when the judges apply it, number one. And two, your police investigations are the biggest jokes you'll ever find. Forget our side. The difference between the right and the left is the left always uses double standards for their own people. The right basically does it from a first principles point of view, which applies to everyone. You have these people called Naxals who are in jail for over a year. You have people supposedly associated with the Delhi riots, who have been in jail for a few months now. None of these people have I seen anything even remotely close to solid evidence. Now you're locking up people for months on end without having any evidence on them. What kind of justice is this? This is just ridiculous. So, this is the kind law and order in India is a joke. And I think the problem is because people see us as this, benign kind of land. We're a benign land, but remember, states are never benign. States are nasty creatures that need the rule of law to control them in that sense. And the other thing is, people tend to forget that we are a pre-industrial, largely agrarian state, which is characterized by extremely high levels of societal violence and things like that. So that is what you have out here. In rural areas and things like that, it is horrific. I can tell you, even in urban areas, the rate of crime resolution is non-existent. God forbid you actually make policemen accountable. My big fear about making policemen accountable and dismissing them if they don't manage to solve over a certain percentage of cases is that the number of fraudulent convictions will just go up. They'll try to plant evidence on anyone and everyone and try to throw as many people in jail as possible. So you see, we're a third world country. Let's deal with it. And it is what it is. It's remarkable that, even with primitive methods of investigation, you can generally say that the Mahajanapada period or the Maurya or the Gupta period had a much better understanding of what law and order was and the consistency of the rule of law.
Great points you made here, because the truth and justice is what makes a country stronger. Now, given this recent incident in North India, where I don't know what happened there, but it looked like a political interference in a local criminal act. Do you think that that's a right analysis of what happened in a city called Hathras?
So in Hathras, there are many different views emerging out there. The problem is this whole thing happened in Kathua as well, in Jammu, where this little girl was raped in a temple. And, there are many, many conflicting versions of that. So I really don't know what has happened out here, except that the details are really, really, really murky. That said, we should remember that what happened at Hathras, this horrific torture, rape, suspected rape, but definitely torture, we really don't know what happened. Was it an honor killing by their family? Was it a rape killing by the other person? From every thing that I'm hearing now, that the accused had been having a roaring affair with this girl, and there were lots of text messages on their phone, is what I've heard, and all of that. This may, of course, be disinformation as well. The problem is, in India, you never have the police coming out and clearly putting out one side of putting out the facts, because what happens is the police are the most clueless of the lot. They don't know what the hell is happening around them. So, there's no way of actually telling. But what you're seeing is classic levels of societal violence. Either way, honor killing or a rape killing by the other side, honor killing by your own family, rape killing by the other side, is a very, very common day-to-day occurrence in India. This one got reported. Normally, they would not get reported. So that's that.
See, one of the things which Americans really don't know about India, that India has a lot of laws in terms of a lot of big systems and courts and other things they have. So they do know that India has a lot of courts and other things, but at the same time, there is a general impression in America that Indians are very simple-hearted, and yogi and more spiritual in a large way. That is a
I can
conception of.
I can actually tell you that that is simply not true. Uh, I'm going to shit on myself a bit and tell you that Indians are the biggest bloody crooks. Never travel around here alone. You'll get there is a whole set of societal problems that have come about from a uh, poverty breeds a sort of meanness of spirit and a meanness of heart. And you see that reflected a lot in Indian society. If you think that Indians are all these wonderful people that go around doing yoga and puja every day and lead virtuous and illustrious lives, no, we do not. We're big lumps of shit. What we do is a huge level of societal violence, low level, low grade, under the threshold societal violence, bad legal systems. There's a disconnect from the normal patterns of hierarchy, good or bad, I'm not going to get into, that used to control this violence that are no longer there. So there, plus there's an economic downturn. So, normal controls gone out of the window, your economy gone out of the window, increased resource competition. So you're seeing a lot of things come together, which is probably going to significantly exacerbate your societal violence out here. I generally take a very, very, I wouldn't say negative, but a very suspicious view of overly spiritual people, because in my experience, I've seen that morality, spirituality, and all of these, they are usually done to hide a lot of ills of society. Suppress conversations, suppress abuse, and things like that. So I tend to stay away from it. The other thing is, remember, and this is the big negative aspect of that hierarchy, other than unbridled power, is that in India, the lower down you are, the more polite and sweet you have to become. The higher up the hierarchy you go, the more obnoxious and nasty you get. So being polite in India gets you nowhere. And this for me was a complete role reversal. I had to learn this all over, because when I came back from Australia, living there for about 11, 12 years, I was just very sweet to people, and I was going on getting taken for a ride. And it wasn't, you just had to start getting nasty. I went from this wonderful driver that be, oh, old lady on the road, please, ma'am, go ahead kind of thing, to get out of my road, you bitch, now! And driving like a nut job. Yeah.
I think you painted a very negative image of India in front of a large audience like this.
It's my view of India, the way I see it. We've lost a lot of the old systems, the traditional systems that made people. I remember India wasn't like this once upon a time. There used to be, 25, 30 years back, it used to be a very poor but still a gracious society. It didn't mean that there was no abuse and things like that. There obviously was. It was hidden and under the surface. But people were generally a lot nicer. Some things happened. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the collision of modernity with the abolition, not the abolition, but the loss of the old systems of control. I don't know what it is, but India as we know it now isn't what India, or maybe I have maybe it was just as bad. It's just that the circles I moved in weren't that bad when I was a kid.
So coming back to this, the U.S. elections, and how do Indians are viewing the U.S. elections?
So the Indian view on everything is extremely superficial. You know this, right? Because what happens is we have no native expertise in India. Nobody has the money to travel abroad. When they go abroad, it's usually to conferences where they keep farting left, right, and center. And it's kind of like a circle fart, this thing, where you say the same thing over in 500 different five-star hotel lobbies and 100 different business class tickets later. Uh, the actual investment in research is virtually non-existent. So, obviously, our reaction to the American elections has also been one of extreme superficiality. It's that you have the virtue signalers out here who are like, oh, Democrats, Trump is a horrible man, you need to vote for them. You have the people who are going gaga over Kamala Harris. That said, I have to say I'm quite happy by the fact that people haven't gone over the top. I mean, you had the usual clowns go over with Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris just hasn't produced the kind of the churn that should have maybe come about because she suddenly rediscovered the Indian American in her. Uh, and with Trump, there's always been a sort of silent but huge grudging admiration for him in that sense. I think you'll find the Indian right actually likes Trump a lot, and you'll find that, and this might be entirely self referential because every circle I move in pretty much likes Trump. Uh, but that's what it is. So, our uh, mostly what people here believe is depending on what they see, Fox News or CNN. If they see CNN, their general belief is that Trump is the most horrible guy and he's going to lose the election. For the right, mostly my circles, I can tell you that we're all looking at this going, well, we think Trump's going to win again, and the opinion polls are wrong again, just like the previous time, because of the threat. The moment you put out a poll that says Trump is winning, you will get attacked. Okay, there is no intellectual honesty left in these polls anymore. You're in fact forced to sort of adjust the results, which is quite disturbing. Because if you remember, after the first debate, Telemundo ran a poll who won the debate, and it said Trump had won 63, 64%. And they immediately removed that poll and said, oh, it's unscientific. I mean, imagine a TV news channel calling its own viewers unscientific and not representative. But that's what it is.
That's so true. So true. I think the youngsters are increasingly seeing the faults of the leftist media, because the opposition to President Trump started right within 1 hour of his taking the oath. I remember the first atrocity report on the first US election 2016 was published by CNN within 1 hour of what after he was sworn in. And it's never stopped. It's so much to an extent that now just watch YouTube and pick and choose what I want to watch rather than go to any channel, any of the channels. Forget about any channel. Forget it. So now coming back to the Joe Biden, what is the impression of Joe Biden on Indian youth and also Indian spiritualists also, because many of the spiritualists also have an opinion on Biden and Trump. What is your data on that, please?
I, one thing I've noticed is in this particular election, they've all been extremely quiet. I suspect a lot of that has to do with the fear that they want to say that Trump is going to win, but they dare not say it out openly. But anyway, I really don't like talking about spiritualists getting into religion because I've always believed that religion needs to be religion and spiritual, and not and even spirituality, because there's this fundamental problem of adjusting what is spirituality and what is religion. I think all spiritual or religious types should stay the hell away from politics. And they've generally just been quiet, which is very, very good.
See that in this election, the yogis and there's a huge yoga community in the US. In fact, Virtually all of our students, when they attend the Sattology clubs, they do yoga and other things. They are very popular there. And so all the yogis have been missed by both the campaigns. And the yogis have been missed completely. And there are more than 500 Hindu temples, more than 100 Hindu farm communities, and huge influencers these are. And these are the mainstream temples I'm talking about, where we Americans go, any race or any color, skin color goes there. But they have been completely ignored by both the campaigns. Do you think there is a reason behind that? Or even though Indians may call themselves a big Trump supporter and they're doing it, it's one-sided love. But there is no reach out by either Joe Biden. Joe Biden is gone on the other side now, but Trump has also not reached out.
Trump hasn't reached out. I think that bit of it was sewn up with Howdy Modi, and the not very unsubtle hint of Ab ki bar Trump Sarkar, which means this time once more Trump. I think he feels that that particular bit has been sewn up. But notice he's not attacking Kamala's Indian origins.
No.
He attacked Pocahontas's faux American Indian origins, Native American origins, but he hasn't attacked Kamala's Indian origins. I think he's just, lying back and saying, I've got about 30 to 35% of the Indian vote. I'm happy with that. I'm not going to risk antagonizing this because, Indians are this wonderful community, it turns out. You look at the Vietnamese almost 94 to 96% vote Republican. And they're pro-business and enterprise. The Indians export their miserable socialism wherever they go. They've gone off to America to escape socialism, but you look at poll after poll, they want more socialism. So, it's a bit like the crow. The nasty thing, crows are wonderful creatures, but they're also nasty creatures because they shit where they eat. And I think that's the problem with the Indian community. We shit where we eat. So they're going to America now and they're taking all this dense nastiness of socialism and bringing it up to America, especially California. There might also be a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, because if you look at Indian communities, they tend to congregate in the urban centers in the two coasts where, this dread of going against the grain is very, very high, that they will pay a high price for not conforming to the democratic woke shibboleths. So they kind of just blend in irrespective. A poll is anonymous. It's done over the phone or something like that. And even there, they want more socialism. They're more willing to vote Democrat and la-di-da-di-da. So, why should Trump really reach out to us? Number one. Number two, the Democrats, if they reach out to us, remember, what happens is they lose the Islamic vote bank, which is very, very problematic for them. And mind you, a lot of Muslims in America have come to America to get away from religious persecution back home. These so-called moderate rebels in Syria, there was nothing moderate about them. I lived in Damascus for about 2 months, and I can tell you it wasn't terribly free or open in the sense of, say, India or America. But it wasn't a closed society either. We had certain freedoms, as long as you kept your nose out of politics, you could do whatever the hell you wanted. There was no issues with it, even though I had several Israeli stamps in my passport. Not an issue. And, you could strike up friends with the local police, with the mukhabarat and all of that. Not an issue. At the same time, remember what the Democrats did. They completely destroyed that country, imposing a set of variously, Daesh, Al Qaeda, whatever you want to call it, all interchangeable, by the way. They move from one to the other. You will concoct very tenuous theological reasons for why an Al Qaeda militant can't go over to Daesh and vice versa. And I can tell you that's complete rubbish, because the average terrorist doesn't know which uh, stream of Islam he's following particularly. They go almost in the sort of Shia sense of they're attracted to a certain preacher or a certain thing and they want to go there, right? So there's all kinds of things out there which, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the American discourse has been hijacked by that. That is now seen as being the only pro-Muslim policy, as opposed to pro-Islamic. I'm using pro-Muslim policy. And India is on the bad side of that particular divide. So, they're not going to reach out to India.
Yeah, it's been very surprising that Indians have given so much support to both the parties, I think, equally. And I would say 50-50. But neither campaign has reached out to this community. Now, yogis are not Indians, yogis are American dharmic people, American Hindus, and also they have firm faith. Many of them are very well educated on Indian scriptures in a real way. They are connected to some real Indian traditions and things like that. And that is almost a 45 million people, Americans, and huge number. And they probably are not going to vote. So when you're looking at the
Remember, they're even in, we need to be quite clear on what it is. Uh, for example, say take Jews. You have observant Jews, you have cultural Jews who are, I mean, all my Jewish friends in America eat pork, consume vast quantities of it. It's the default food. Most of them have smokers in their backyard and they love doing this pulled pork or whatever, the slow 24-hour, 48-hour something, slow smoked pork or whatever. Delicious, but they're Jews. They will have their bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah and all of that. So uh, that's fine. But what are, I've found that a lot of what passes off as sort of Hinduism in America is fadism. It's like, oh, we do yoga. We hate Trump. We do yoga. India, Modi is a fascist state. We love Ilhan Omar, but I'm going to go do bhajans in my temple tonight. I don't think you can make a unified call to Hindus ever. Not in India, not in America. I think the lesson of Indian history is there is no such thing as a political Hindu. When Mahmud of Ghazni was coming 17 times and destroying Somnath temple, temple after temple, including Somnath temple, the Chora king, Somnath was one of the Jyotirlingas, right? One of the most sacred lingas to any Shaivite. The Chora king, who was a devout Shaivite, Rajaraja Chora and Rajendra Chora, were far more interested in planning an invasion of Malaysia at that point of time than they were in protecting one of the Jyotirlingas in Somnath. In fact, they went and conquered Malaysia, Indonesia, whatever, the Srivijaya Empire at the same time that Mahmud was coming and destroying these things. When did you ever see a united coalition? There is no such thing as a political Hindu. It doesn't exist. It is not going to exist in that sense. We're too individualistic. We're the quintessential capitalists in that sense, right? There is, not that I know of, there is no this collective, what Huntington would describe as substance and salience.
Isn't that natural for a human being, that to be more individualistic, because that's the characteristic of the soul? But at the same time,
Not if you're a third rater. Not if you're a third rater. If you're a third rater, like every woke is, tell me one woke person who's actually a first rater at anything they do.
Yeah.
You turn woke because you're a third rater, fundamentally. So when you are a third rater, there is a great deal of security in the crowd. And that is where you head up to. In India, you've always been kind of individualistic in that sense because, for good or bad, see, it works when everybody in that sense was individualistic. Uh, it is a religion from a different age. Let me give you an example. When Greece conquers Egypt, and then Rome conquers both Greece and Egypt, none of them go around destroying each other's temples. They identify, Isis becomes both Aphrodite and who's the Roman god of the hunt? Diana, right? So Isis becomes both of, Aphrodite and the god of love, Venus. It was the syncretic culture which identified each other's gods as our own, blended everything up to the point where the religion of the Roman legions became Mithraism, after whom I'm named Mitra, Shanno Varuna from the Vedas, which was also a Persian god. And Persia, Parthia at that time, was their their staunchest enemy at that time. But they had no issues in absorbing a Parthian god into the Roman pantheon. As opposed to what happens after this whole Abrahamization sets in, which is, it is my God, your gods are not gods, we're going to smash and destroy. Right? So this kind of sort of, I won't call it entirely polytheism. It's sort of, Hinduism in that sense is an umbrella. See, I'm an atheist and I'm still a Hindu because I don't derive from the Western school of atheism. I think theism is very stupid, but my logic of being an atheist comes from the Vedas. It doesn't come from anywhere else. All right, I am given sanction to be an atheist by the Vedas, and my entire thought process is derived from there. It is not from Western atheism. We get along just fine. Nobody kills me for being an atheist out here. And I can say whatever I want. But remember, this is a religion from a different time, meant to deal with different realities, that's never really coped with and never really changed in that sense to suit what it faces.
Great points. I think it's really, really wonderful that you touched upon these points. Now, my last question to you is so you touched on why, pretty much you said why they're apathetic to anything which is happening around us. And
Just one more quick point. You remember, just very quick point. Technically, for the old Persians, for the Zoroastrians, we're the same stock. We're the Indo-Iranian people. And we were both in the Sindhu belt, what was called the Saraswati, till it dried up.
Yeah.
In Persian, it was called Hapta Hindu in the Gathas, in the Zendavasta. The Gathas are the oldest book of the Zendavasta. The Hapta Hindu, which dried up, and then they moved to Persia, and we moved to the Gangetic Basin. For us, they were devil worshippers. For them, we were devil worshippers, because the Hindu word for God is Deo, Theos, Deus. Deus in Latin, Theos in Greek, Dev in Deva in Sanskrit. And the word for demon was Asura. For Persians, Zoroastrians, Asura was God. And their devils were called Deo, Theos, Deus. Right? So in spite of that, so when you have these Persian empires, the Sassanids or the Parthians or the Achaemenid Empire, Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes, for them we would have been devil worshippers, but they never came and destroyed our temples. Because the belief was, you may be devil worshippers, but you have a right to worship the devil. Congratulations to you. And our belief was, yes, you're the devil worshippers. It's your right to worship the devil. Right? We never went around destroying each other's religions or, none of that rubbish. It just didn't happen. Hindus had freedom of religion in Persia. Persians had freedom of religion in India. It never made a difference, devil worship or not. Now you try that in Europe at any time during Christendom. If you were worshipping Satan or anything like that, you'd be burnt alive in no time at all. right? So remember, different religion, the other religion that never adapted to it and always remained peaceful in that sense, Zoroastrianism. We've seen what's become of it. There are about 75,000 of them left in India, 100,000 left in Persia. Otherwise, the religions practically vanished. Right? So that's that.
No, great points, and I think the you accurately pointed out that how the harmony has been maintained historically, and due to the invasion of exclusivity through Abrahamic literatures, the violence became more prominent, and the society got more divided into have and have-nots. Now, this is my last point to you, last question to you as well, is that do you think that the current resurgence, I'll call it, because you'll see a lot of resurgence happening in India, a lot, and that is also affecting the world because the number of Indians is so large that you can combine North America, South America, and Europe, and then it is India. That's the number of people we are talking about. So it's like three continents merged into one in a small subcontinent. Now, highly populated, heavily dense, so human capital is huge in India as well as spiritual capital. Do you think that in the current state, India can regain Vishwa Guru status what it was in the past? Or what will
Not
it take to do that?
not in my lifetime. Most probably not in our viewers' lifetime either. And I'll tell you why. Human capital is actually quite low. Uh, you basically, if you look at it, we have 13 million Indians joining the workforce every year, which, if you look at 12 grades of primary education, and then 3 years of, say, a bachelor's degree or a trade or a craft degree, you are looking at a total of 15 years of education into 13 million people every year. So 15 into 13 into, at a rudimentary level, rudimentary, I'm talking about a factory floor worker level, uh, investment of $1,000 per student per year at the primary level, and $10,000 per person per year at the secondary level. So 3 or 4 years of a bachelor's degree or a trade degree. That would bring you to an annual education budget upwards of $500 billion. We spend $8 billion. That is the difference. Indian human capital is virtually non existent. You have whoever manages to gain that human capital, manages to make the most out of that 8 billion, they tend to go abroad, or they tend to be already at the very top of society, one way or another. Privilege. I mean, I have privilege. What is the profit in denying that I had privilege? You have privilege, Adi. But you tell me honestly, how many people from the street do you know that can rise up to the level of even you or me? It's virtually an impossibility. That social stagnation is enormous. That lack of social mobility is enormous. And it's getting worse and worse the more your population expands. There is a critical lack of resources to build up human capital. And remember, the more and more the resource crunch gets worse, the worse your spiritual capital gets as well. Because spirituality comes to you when you are detached from society in that sense, or detached from day to day worries and things like that. Uh, you're not. So I think that there's really nothing much in the India story left anymore. I'm not seeing a way out. I'm sorry to be such a pessimist. It must be Kali Yuga, the effects of Kali Yuga in that sense. But it is what it is.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Abhijit. You covered so many points, and it's a great honor to have you always on the show, and it's a pleasure to for the viewers as well. We'll have more points to discuss when we when later on, and but let us continue this discussion. And you left me one point, and that is the weakness of Indian. Uh, uh, is coming from the lack of focus on controlling their mind. I think that's where I want to talk to you in the next topic discussion whenever you have time. So, viewers, keep watching. This video will be available on YouTube. Do comment and share. And many of you are laughing in your in splits because Abhijit is funny personality, and he has facts too. So we will we'll come back with this light-hearted open chit chat with Abhijit. Thank you. Namaskar.
I've got to.